Alright guys, welcome back or welcome to Running for Views. Today we're going to be talking about how to prepare for your first 100-mile race. But before I get into that, did you know that 88% of you aren't subscribed? Hit that subscribe button or I'll show up at your 100-mile race and force you to DNF. You want to finish your race, right? Just do it! So back in May of this year, I completed my first ever 100-mile ultra marathon. It was the hardest thing I have ever physically done, but it was 1,000% worth every ounce of pain I felt. But before finishing my 100-mile race this year, I had attempted to run 100 miles twice before that. And both of those times did not work out. The reasons why those first two attempts did not work out was because I was not mentally and physically ready to cover 100 miles by foot. So today we're going to talk about 5 ways to prepare you for your 100-mile race and get you that finish. Number 1, pick a race. Now this is where I would say that I messed up the first 2 times. I chose races that were way too hard for me. I love the mountains, so I chose to do a mountain 100-mile race. And that was not a good idea. So for your first 100-mile race, you're gonna wanna make sure that the trails that are near you are similar to the trails that you're going to be racing on. So for example, if you wanna do a 100-mile race on technical mountain trails, but you live in Florida, this could be difficult given that the tallest mountain in Florida is barely even a hill. You'll also want to pick a 100-mile race that you know is achievable for you. So for example, I would say for your first 100-mile ultra, you should not do a race that has more than 15,000 feet of elevation gain, or 4,500 meters. Some other things to keep in mind when you're choosing your first race are the weather conditions similar to where you live? How much time do you have to train per week? How much traveling you have to do to get to your race? And is this race something that really excites you and will get you out there to train every day? You'll also want to make sure that the race is at least 20 weeks away from the day that you sign up. Once you found a race that works for you, you are ready to start training. Number 2, training plan. Follow my training plan or you'll TNF. Just kidding. So you chose your race and are now looking for the perfect 100-mile training plan. You're in luck because I have one that is perfect for you. This 100-mile training plan is almost guaranteed to get you to the finish of that 100-mile race. This training plan is inspired by Kilian Jornet himself from his training Bible, The Uphill Athlete. Buy the book, link in description below. Go get it. Training Bible. But for reals guys, there is so much information in this book that will help you get to that 100-mile finish line. Link in description below. Some other resources to check out if you're not interested in using my training plan and want to fail. Just kidding. Is the Some Work All Play training plan and also the Hal Kerner's Field Guide to Ultra Running training plan. So I'll link both of those below so you can check those out. But yeah guys, make sure that the training plan is at least 16 weeks long and that you have a really good aerobic base going into that training plan. And if you need an aerobic base building training plan, I'll link that right here so you can check that out. Number 3, race nutrition plan. So you have your race, you have your training plan. Now you need to start incorporating nutrition into your workouts. So for your race, you're gonna wanna have at least 70 to 120 grams of carbs per hour. And basically, the more carbs you're able to take in per hour, the more likely you are to finish. But to eat this many carbs during your race, you're going to have to practice it in your training. So the way that you do this is on your long runs, you should be using your race nutrition plan. So for my race nutrition plan, I'm drinking most of my carbs and then the rest I'm getting from gels and solid food. So some great companies that sell both carb drink mixes and gels are Precision Hydration, Marathon, and science and sport. And these are just a few of the options. But yeah, I'll link those below also so you can go check out which one you think would work best for you. Another thing you're gonna wanna do with your nutrition is test how well you respond to caffeine. Caffeine can be a game changer in these ultra long races. I don't handle caffeine very well in races, which is why I take mostly caffeine-free gels and drink mixes. However, once I get to that 24-hour mark, you can guarantee I'm taking caffeine. But yeah, make sure in your training that you test how caffeine works for you. If it works well for you, the recommendation is to take about 50 milligrams of caffeine per hour. Another thing to keep in mind is I find that in my races, I get to about the halfway point, so about the 50-mile mark, and can no longer handle taking gels and drink mixes, and I need solid food. So make sure to have solid food in your drop bags and to be eating it at the aid stations. Number 4, run at night. Now for most of us, we're gonna be running through at least one full night in our first 100-mile race. It sucks, but it's true. So a lot of 100-mile races in the US start really early in the morning and then you'll finish really late that night or even the next day. In European 100-mile races, they usually start in the afternoon. You'll run through the whole night and then finish sometime that next day or even the next night. So either way, you are going to be running during the night. And let me tell you, running during the night is not fun. It's scary, easy to get lost, and most people DNF during the night. So to make sure that this doesn't happen to you, you need to do some of your training runs at night. So I would recommend doing at least 6 of your long runs or back-to-back long runs at night. So running at night in your training runs will help you see if you like your headlamp, gets you used to being in the dark for long periods of time, helps you practice your footing in the dark, and helps you know what it'll feel like running sleep deprived. Number 5, practice for your race. So to practice for your race, you're gonna wanna do this mostly during your long runs or back-to-back long runs. So this means that you're gonna be following your race nutrition plan during your long runs. Also, like I said, if you're running at night, you have to practice that. Another thing to keep in mind is you're gonna be running with at least a 5-pound pack for the full 100 miles. So you should definitely be doing that in your training runs. Because 5 pounds may seem pretty light right now, but trust me, after running for 20 hours, it feels pretty heavy. Another thing to keep in mind is, are you going to be using poles or no poles during your 100-mile race? I would recommend using poles. Even if your race is mostly flat, those poles will help you during that last part of the race, guaranteed. Lastly, for practicing for your race, are you going to be doing any B races? So a B race is pretty much just like a practice race. So a lot of athletes will either do a 50-mile race or a 100K race before their 100-mile race. And yes, I would recommend doing one of these races before your 100-mile race, but not during your training. So for me, I would say that I would do a B race about 6 months before my 100-mile race. I've tried doing B races in my training and they do not work for me. I end up showing up at the 100-mile race already just mentally fatigued from having to push myself during the B race, and also sometimes even physically fatigued. But if you really are set on doing a B race, I would recommend doing it at least 8 or more weeks out from your 100-mile race. This way you have time to recover and train hard again before your race. Another thing I would recommend doing if you want to do a practice race is take it very, very easy during that practice race. Like uncomfortably easy. Also for your B race, I would try to find a race that is at least a quarter of the elevation of your 100-mile race. So for example, if your 100-mile race has about 15,000 feet of elevation gain, your B race should have about 4,000 feet of elevation gain. But yeah, guys, that wraps up the 5 things that will prepare you to run your first 100-mile race. So I know it feels like I threw a lot of information at you guys, but remember that running 100 miles will most likely be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life up to this point. So yeah, there's a lot of information that you need to know. But yeah, guys, if you enjoyed the video, please subscribe. And if you liked the video, smash that like button, because one like equals 1 hour shaved off of your 100-mile race time. Okay, bye.